Hey YouTube, this is gonna be a 10-minute video. Finally, drama, drama, drama is juicy. If y'all was watching my shorts, I gave a lot of what I'm talking about in the shorts, but I can give you a little bit more detail now. So, they went back, they reeled back to, last season or whatever, and found out Evelyn's, they went back to last season so you can get a feel in. And Evelyn had the audacity to say that she did a private investigator and then it was determined that Jackie used to be a prostitute back in the day. I said, oh, I ain't never heard that. Not Doug Chris's wife. And I'm like, she just making up stuff. Just making up stuff for a storyline. I made that point to say making up stuff for a storyline. You're going to see why I said that in a second. And then Chantel lives next door to her mom. And you're going to have to pay attention to this part too. So we finna move on to this. Her daughter speak her mind. I love Chantel. I actually like all her kids. I liked her son. I thought it's Dougie. I think that's his name. He's a junior. And then Chantel. And she has another daughter that's my skin color. Takari. If y'all watch the Basketball Wives in the other previous seasons, I can just go ahead and tell you it's a thing of Takari wrote a book and she was pretty much saying that she got unfair treatment from her mother because of her skin color. And I always thought that was weird because I'm like, Jackie is this color. She's dark skinned. I'm like, she had a complexity about her skin color, and it's obvious because she wasn't nice to her daughter. And I remember it was like, I want to say earlier seasons. And if y'all want me to go back and review that, if y'all need to get filled in, I don't have no problem going back and looking at that episode because she wrote a book now. And Evelyn messy, but I guess it was for a good cause because it got brought out on the show. And she was just pretty much saying she bought her book. And she was telling Jackie that, well, you treating your daughter as different kind of way than your other kids. And then Jackie got so mad, like she always do. And y'all know Jackie drinks a lot too. Okay, going on to that. And then another thing, she got her own alcohol, Hennessy, Broussard, lime. Go figure. Okay, getting off of her. So, back to Chantel. She is now a basketball wife. And her husband is Daquan Jeffries. Jeffries. And he plays for the Charlotte Hornets. And they have a baby together. And Chantel already had a baby. And then her husband, he shut it down. And he pretty much said that the baby that they got together, he don't want him being on the show. And I said, okay, respect, respect, respect. And she had to respect her husband, which she did. And then reeling all the way back, I'm pretty sure y'all done heard that Evelyn is a grandmother too. Chantel, well, what is it? Shanice. Not gonna get them kids mixed up. But Shanice, she has a baby with the gang. Put a pin in that. And then, Jackie B always being messy. And she was having this thing called Friendsgiving. And of course, she wanted to invite every single body on the cast to the party. That's going to elude drama and mess. So she is the top mess starter on this show. She definitely is. She can be a matriarch. Like I've said in the shorts that I made about this show, she can be a matriarch. However, she's very, very messy. We're going to put a pin in that. And she wanted to invite all the ladies to Friendsgiving. And then she invited Ming Lee. I think it's Ming. She invited Ming to the store, the baby store. And then Evelyn came too. And I go back. It wasn't Ming Lee. Not yet. It was Evelyn, and they was both sharing the fact that they both grandmothers. And then, and then friendship, the Friendsgiving discussion, um, Brandy and Jen, they met up about it, and then Brandy was pretty much saying what Jennifer was saying, that she not interested in coming. And Brandy asked her if she wanted to come, and she said if she come, then she can come with her. And she didn't want to come with her. And then Evelyn's cousin, which I thought that it was her blood cousin, but it's her ex fiance's husband. I mean, cousin, excuse me. Cousin. And saying that, getting the storyline started. Saying that she invested $1,500 in Jennifer's husband's business. And I had to just think about, I've never been familiar with Bitcoin. And it's like an investment thing. The way that he said it was an investment. He has an investment business. Okay. And said that $1,500, the cousin said that she invested $1,500 and she want her money back. I said, ooh. All right, let's put a pin on that. We're going to give it to Brittany Renner. And she is now a Muslim, but she's still pretty. I love Brittany Renner. I have my favorites on the shows, but I can say that I actually don't have a problem with none of them. But I have my favorites, and Brittany is one of my favorites. Ming Lee is one of my favorites. And Jennifer, she's one of my favorites. I like Jen. And then I like Brandy. I like all four of them. And Brittany Renner, she is now Muslim. And then she reached out to Jen, and then they had a conversation. Let me make sure it was Jen. Let me see if I remember Brittany Renner. It was either Jen or Jackie. I don't think it was Jackie. Yes, it was Jackie. And I'm going to tell you why it was Jackie. Slipped my mind. I should have wrote the name down. But she did say that Jackie was the only person out of the group that reached out to her. And she said they just kept a close relationship. So she had been checking on her and things like that. So she felt comfortable sitting down and telling Jackie that her mom stole money from her. And Brittany says she don't really want to know how much it was. She just cut off her mom, and then she cut off a lot of her family. And I said, that's sticky. That's sad. Not good. But I understand. It was a substantial amount of money for her to cut her mama off. I understand. So, Brittany Renner and Evelyn don't get along. And I'm going to tell you what Evelyn said. Evelyn made it her business to do an interview. And she said that Brittany doesn't dress the part to be a basketball wife. And not in public either. And I kind of remember that interview when she was talking to Ish. Evelyn. She's miserable. I'm going to keep saying it. She's very miserable. And, Brittany, she didn't F with her for that reason. And she didn't reach out pretty much to nobody. And I said, okay, I can understand, because it is kind of like a judgy situation. And from what I remember, Brittany Renner wasn't completely naked. And I'm thinking, y'all stay in LA. It's hot as I don't know what down there. So, y'all didn't have clothes on a lot of times neither. But going all the way back to the first season, if y'all remember, it was Royce Williams. And she had an issue. Evelyn had an issue with Royce. Jennifer had an issue with Royce. And Susie. Them three had issues with Royce. And I said, just jealous ladies. All right, but that's the drama right there. And then Ming Lee. I know y'all probably remember Ming Lee from Housewives of Atlanta. Atlanta. And Ming Lee, she's moving from LA. Well, let me go back. She's already was in Atlanta. And she moved from Atlanta to LA so that she can start her business. And her business is called Snob Life. And she wanted to expand it. So bring it from Atlanta to LA. And I said, she a business-minded woman. Now, keep in mind, Ming Lee, that person. And then Tai Young is Ming Lee's ex. And let me see how I can describe it. It seemed like that was around the time that, what's her name? Mimi from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta were talking, and then it go back to Drew Sidora because it was some happenings that Drew Sidora and Tai Young, they were both mixing together. And I'm like, Drew, okay. And then I said, a lot of mixing of the bodies going on. But I mean, to each his own. Like I say, to each his own. No judgment here. And then poor Brittany. She said that it just hurt her feelings pretty much what Evelyn said and how she was, classifying her and saying stuff about her. And I said, I can understand that though. I really can understand. I can be, like I said, I can be on both sides and I can have compassion for everybody in all of their situations. So I just really hate that for her. And she's gonna be on my love. I said, I like her. I said, she gonna be one of my favorites out of all the 4 people that I named. Because she's just such a sweet person. And then, going back down to the final parts. So, Brittany Renner had left. And it was a little bit too much for her. With her trying to have a conversation with Evelyn. And then Evelyn asked her, she did her just like this. She said, She trying to tell her how she feel and how she felt about what she said about her on the interview. And then Evelyn said, are you done? I said, all right. And then it went to commercial. But when it came back from commercial, Brittany said, well, you're very condescending. And then Evelyn said, I mean, I was never trying to be condescending. And I'm like, Evelyn, please, your whole disposition can be condescending now. Because you just had this attitude. And I'm like, girl, don't do that. And then I said, don't do that, Evelyn. Please don't do that. And then Jen and Ming Lee arrive. Now keep in mind, Brittany Renner is there. And it just was a whole, everybody began, everybody that's on the show, on the cast, except for Tai Young. She ain't gonna come until next week, I think. But Tai Young and Ming Lee and Jen, they arrived and everybody was looking, and then it was just kind of like awkward for them to walk in. And then she said, hi, Ming. She said, hi, how y'all doing? Just saying, hey, how you doing to everybody. And everybody was like, the tension was thick. And like Shanny said, Shanny, Jackie's daughter, she said, well, the tension is so thick you can cut it with a steak knife. I said, ooh, steak knife? And then when Shanny said that, then Jackie said, well, are y'all ready to eat? And then let me tell you about that turkey. That turkey looked just like that turkey from an episode of the Thanksgiving episode of Martin that Gina cooked. And it wasn't nothing on that turkey, and that turkey was dead as I don't know what. It wasn't even cooked. I said, Jackie. And then Shaddy said, are you going to stuff that? And I said, is she going to cook it? That turkey is not cooked. So, Evelyn had to start in on Jen as soon as she got there. And Jen already said that she wasn't looking forward to seeing Evelyn. And then I said, that's terrible that she just would do her like that. And then Jen, she got with her. And then she said, Jen said, well, I heard that Christian was a scammer. And then he scammed some older woman. And Jen said, that's false. She said, that's not true. She said, he's a day trader. I said, day trader. And then Brenda was asking, and she said, well, Jen, I'm concerned. And she said, no. She said, are you okay, Jen? She said, I'm fine. Don't ask me anything about my husband. I said, whew. And then Jennifer had just left by then. And she was just fed up with everybody. And then by the time she got to the steps, she could still hear Evelyn doing this, talking. And then Jen screamed and she said, well, I'm going to tell you, Evelyn. She said, stop fishing for a storyline because we're good. And then that was the end of that part. I said, whew. Well, Brittany and Evelyn, they made up. And I said, sure, Evelyn. Of course, y'all gonna make up. It's such a mess. And then they switched to, the end scene. And then Christian, he was getting out of jail. And then Jen was so happy. And she said, Christian has served his time. And I'm welcoming him home. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. I'm happy that Jen is married. I'm happy for her. I really like Jen. But Christian said that, how is it going? How the ladies treating you? And Jen said, not good. I mean, we had some type of a Friendsgiving, and they were talking about you. He said, well, what did they say? She said, they were talking about the fact that you scammed some lady out of $1,500. And he said, I didn't do that. He said, that's not how the business works. He said, I invest. And he said, $1,500. He said, that's lunch money. I said, okay, so he trying to prove and say that he didn't steal the woman's money? Okay, cool, noted. I said, all right. And then that was the end of that. Then it flashed to the whole season. And when I tell you it's gonna get so juicy, and I'll be waiting for this episode where Chantel is gonna be hollering at Jackie that, Mom, you didn't even raise your own kids. And do you think that I'm gonna turn my kids over to you? I said, I knew it. Takari, she had said that Jackie was like that. And she said she was very, very colorist. And a long time ago, people were saying that Jackie was colorist. And Jackie would get so upset. They said it. She said it and they said it. Everybody said it. But it's going to be a juicy season and I can't wait. I'm liking Basketball Wives so far. I hope y'all liking Basketball Wives and I hope y'all get a chance to watch it. And I hope y'all like my video, comment on my video, and subscribe. And I will continue to make y'all good content. And like and subscribe to my other YouTube shorts. Just like those for me. And then just take a look at them. They're 3 minutes, I mean. They're broken 3-minute increments. And if you don't want to sit down and watch the whole 19-minute video and me just bringing it all back in, then check out my YouTube shorts. And thank you so much. Bye, YouTube. Have a good one. Have a good night. I'm going to go ahead and do the uploading.